If they're still alive, the crew of the missing Titan submarine are running out of time, hope and oxygen. The US Coast Guard estimates their air could run out by 11 tonight, New Zealand time. The submarine was on a mission to explore the wreck of the Titanic at a depth of 3,800 metres. That's a bit more than the height of Aoraki Mount Cook. There are 5 men on board, a wealthy British-Pakistani businessman and his son, a British billionaire, a French diver and Ocean Gate submersible owner Stockton Rush, who in the past actually lived in New Zealand for a while. Well, US correspondent Mitch McCann is at search headquarters in Boston. And Mitch, how are the conditions for the searchers?
Yeah, good evening from Boston, Michael. There have been concerns about conditions in the North Atlantic Ocean for a number of days now. The latest information we have from the search area is that the wind is sitting around 17 knots, which is quite calm, and it's much better than 50-kilometre-an-hour winds whipping up 2-metre swells, which was the forecast earlier in the day. And that might seem like some good news, Michael, but really, that's where it ends. The best hope for the missing Titan crew may be this: the robot mini-sub aboard the French ship Atalante. It can reach the ocean bed where the Titanic lies, and if rescuers can locate the missing submersible, it can cut tangled cables or attach a line so it can be pulled up. It can only travel at walking pace, but nobody's giving up.
This is a search and rescue mission, 100%. We are smack dab in the middle of search and rescue.
Especially as more hope arrived last night in the form of noises detected under the water by a Canadian search plane. Those sounds have been heard again today, but unfortunately they're confirmation of nothing.
The ocean is a very complex place. Obviously, human sounds, nature sounds, and it's very difficult to discern what the source of those noises are at times.
One expert says the banging noises could be loose material from the Titanic shipwreck itself.
It's the wreck site of the Titanic, so there is a lot of metal and different objects in the water around this site.
5 people are on board the submersible named Titan, which has been missing since Sunday. Speaking to the families, how much hope can you give them after hearing those noises?
We need to have hope, right? But I can't tell you what the noises are. But what I can tell you is, and I think this is the most important point, we're searching where the noises are, and that's all we can do at this point.
With hope running out, it's almost impossible to know if the submersible has any oxygen left on board. Officials today were unwilling to put a number on how many hours the crew may have left.
I think the most likely scenario, unfortunately, is they will not be found in time.
Of the 10 vessels involved in the rescue mission, at least 5 are now at the search site. But remember, it's twice the size of Northland. Yeah, so really that does give an indication of how vast this ocean is, where this, submersible could be bobbing around on the surface. But there are a number of vessels making their way there now to try and find these 5 people on board.
Absolutely. And Mitch, you've also found out something else interesting about Stockton Rush.
That's right. Stockton Rush is the pilot on board the submersible out in the ocean at the moment. He's also the chief executive of Ocean Gate, the company that owns it. It turns out his wife, Wendy Rush, is a direct descendant of 2 people who died on the Titanic in 1912. Wendy Rush is the great-great-granddaughter of Isidore and Ida Strauss, 2 first-class passengers who died on the infamous ship when it sunk in 1912. It turns out Wendy Rush is also a communications director at Ocean Gate, that company, and she's travelled herself on expeditions to the Titanic 3 times already.
Interesting indeed. Thank you very much. That's US correspondent Mitch McCann.
Well, Stockton Rush once proclaimed the Titan was obscenely safe, but even people on his own engineering team had raised the red flag about it.
The French diver who was at the controls on this mission once talked about what would happen if things went wrong, and it wasn't running out of air that most concerned him. Alice Wilkins reports.
Before its disappearance, the Titan took Mexican actor Alan Estrada on an earlier expedition. But that mission wasn't without its own hiccups.
But I'm not hearing a transmission on this.
He had cameras rolling as the submersible lost communication with the surface for a time.
One last shot on Kongsberg.
And the vessel's lights became problematic.
There is something strange.
French diver Paul-Henri Nargeolet was on the crew that day and is among the missing on this latest mission. Nicknamed Mr. Titanic, he's been down to it dozens of times and in 2017 spoke about the worst-case scenario.
You can stay about 4 or 5 days on the bottom, which not help very much. After a while, you dive because of the cold, which is not a bad way to dive because you fall in sleep and it's not you don't suffer in this case. We know that, but we never think that could happen.
The owner of Ocean Gate, Stockton Rush, spent time in New Zealand earlier in life after his father built Takaroa Lodge near Te Anau. It's hard to believe that this modest building in Canada is where he dreamt up his Titanic exploring sub, which he once called obscenely safe.
I think it was General MacArthur said, "You're remembered for the rules you break." And, you know, I've broken some rules to make this. I think I've broken them with logic and good engineering behind me.
But serious questions were being raised by official maritime organisations back in 2018.
This could probably have been prevented if some of our regular certification procedures had been followed.
That's along with a company whistleblower who says he was sacked after demanding more testing. Court documents show he alleged the carbon fibre used had prevalent flaws. And the company's own engineering department found the viewpoint at the forward end was only built to a certified pressure of 1,300 metres, although Ocean Gate intended to take passengers down to depths of 4,000 metres.
We run the whole thing with this game controller.
US journalist David Pogue, who went on the vessel, has since spoken of his own concerns.
There are 18 bolts in a circle around the hatch, and by the way, they only fasten 17 of them. The 18th one is way up high, and they say there's really no mathematical difference.
Chris Brown was meant to be on board with missing friend Hamish Harding, but turned down the chance to go.
Most explorers assess the risks before deciding to go on an expedition.
But for those trapped below the surface, last seen when the Titan disappeared underwater, that risk assessment has gone horribly wrong. Alice Wilkins, Newshub.